it's set up for me to share my screen when we get to that point.
Yeah, I think everybody can share. If that doesn't work, I'll fix it when we get there. But okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so it's a little disconcerting when you're sharing your screen, and I've got two monitors, so that makes it a little complicated, but I trust you're seeing a Lightroom display now.
Yes.
Good. Okay, terrific. So most of these pictures I just took the day before yesterday. I thought it would be good to do something fresh, and it was a nice day. The one disappointment I had, I watched the weather because I like going to Frankfurt. This is Frankfurt, and it's really fun to go there if it's windy. And they said there were going to be 20-mile-an-hour winds, but there weren't when I got there. And, you know, maybe they were 10 miles an hour, but it was still a nice sunny day anyway. And for Frankfurt, relatively warm because it wasn't freezing. You know, it wasn't, the wind chill wasn't a big deal. So. Okay, so anyway, I picked out some images and we'll try to demonstrate various things with some of the images that I selected. So I put them in a collection down here. So we won't look at all these probably, but this is one way. If you took like yesterday, I probably took 300 pictures or something. And I wanted to select a subset so I didn't have to fumble around in the folder. So I just made a collection, a static collection, not a smart collection. So a dumb collection, and put these pictures in there. And now I'm in the develop module, and at the bottom here, I see the pictures that I want to select. So I can jump from one picture to another just by clicking on it. Okay. All right, so let's start with this first one. The first thing that I usually do, especially in this case, is I'm not very good at keeping the camera level sometimes. So this is often the first thing I do, partly because if it's really screwed up, you can, when you do level the picture, you're going to lose parts of it, and you may as well lose them now before you've invested too much. You know, I've decided that, oh, this corner up here is really interesting because it's probably going to go away when I level it out. So anyway, click on the crop overlay, and then your cursor has to be outside the picture, and it turns into this little double arrow circular thing. And now I can move it around, rotate it. And you see we are losing quite a bit of the picture on the sides there because this is pretty tipped. The other useful thing is when you're outside the picture, you see all these lines, and one of them is kind of bound to be near a place where you want to make that this horizon. So that's about where it is. So I do that rotation, and then I click on that, and now the picture has been adjusted so that it's level anyway.
Okay, this is not about this, but before you get too much into the development, did you actually put them into folders and then created a collection from?
Yeah.
Or does that automatically happen?
Yeah, no. So yeah, I'll show you. In fact, if you click on a picture, you can always say, go to the folder in the library. And now it jumps back. So here, this is the folder. So yesterday, or the day when I took these pictures, I imported them all into one big folder.
Okay.
And here they are. And then I would just select one and say, add to the, not quick collection, but I guess I don't have a target collection picked. But what I would do is create a collection, an empty collection, make it the target collection. And then in this thing here, I could just say add to the target collection. It'll go in whatever collection I've, since we've got plenty of time, let me just show you how that works. So I go down to the collection here. What I'm looking at here is the SIG demo collection. And I'm going to set it as the target collection. So now when I click on a picture here, you'll say add to the target collection. Okay, so now that's in the target collection. And in fact, if I want to jump to the target collection, I just say go to collection. And there, this is actually all the collections that this picture's in, but I know that the SIG demos is the one that I'm dealing with. And so I go there, here's this picture that I added, and I think it sticks onto the end. One thing to be aware of with collections versus folders is collections let you move things around. Folders don't. I mean, you can resort folders by all sorts of metadata, by the date, probably the lens, keywords, all that sort of stuff. But you can't just literally do this to rearrange things in some random way that you want. So that's a helpful thing to know about collections. Okay, so back to the regular show here. Okay, so here we are. It's straightened out. The next thing that I look at is the histogram, this thing up here, which shows the three RGB channels. And this end, of course, is bright exposure, high exposure, and these are relatively dark exposures. And this is not bad. Nothing's blown out, nothing's too dark. It would probably be better if it was stretched out a little bit, but that's, I'll show you some others where it's more of a problem. Oops, I should go to develop. Yeah, okay. So notice you see the histogram in the library display, and you also see it in the develop display. But if you want to change this histogram, the first thing that, first control, it's really good at doing that dramatically, is the exposure. So if I move it to the right, it sort of slams everything over to the right, makes it lighter and brighter. And in fact, I can go, so everything just about disappears. And you'll also see on the histogram display here, it shows you where it's cropping, where it's so exposed that there's no detail left. And this red display also shows you the places where it's cropping the most. So if I back off the exposure, then it goes away. I can do the same thing with the other end. And now the blue dots show me where it's completely dark. So that's useful. The other thing that I sometimes use, and I'll set it up here, is to show a before and after. And you can do that with the view, before and after. And left, right means it's going to make two pictures. This is the original one, and this is the one that you're changing. You can also get rid of this. See this little arrow here, and make these two things bigger. So now when I change the exposure, I see what it does on the right, and I can compare it to what's the original was on the left. Okay, so this one, I don't know, it looks a little bit more rich to me if you turn the exposure down a little bit. Before I go any further, though, I almost always shoot in auto white balance, and it almost always does a pretty good job of producing a faithful, a reasonable white balance. You can change the white balance with these controls here, or you can pick something. I actually very, very rarely use these, but if you didn't have the white balance on auto, but you remembered that it was a shady day or something, you could do that, and it then adjusts the image. So it thinks it knows what a perfect image would look like if it were shot in the shade, and how you would have to undo that, to get back to the perfect image somehow. So as I say, I don't really tend to use that. I just use as shot. But of course, you can change the temperature yourself. You can change the tint yourself. And sometimes you want to do that for an effect. Or sometimes you think there is really something wrong. All right, so now I've kind of messed this thing up. So one way to go back easily is up here to edit, but there's a shortcut that I use all the time, which is Control Z. Oops. And that will back up. As far as you want to go. Whoops, too far. Oh, yeah, it took me back to the library because I went too far, I think. All right, so we're back now. It didn't go past the beginning here. It didn't go back to where the picture wasn't, rotated. It just went back to where I'd started doing this comparison, the before and after comparison. Okay, so that's exposure. Contrast. It's a little subtler if you do it a little bit, but if you do it a lot, you can begin to see that it really sort of washes out the difference between colors and values, or it makes it extreme. You can see what it's doing to the histogram. It's either squashing it together or spreading it out more. So this picture originally looked like this. It might be a little bit better. If you spread it out, you would get a bigger range of colors in the picture if you spread it out a bit with contrast. Okay, so any questions about the first part of these changes? Okay.
Oh, good.
Okay, so let me go on to the next four then. The names, again, tell you what they are, but it's useful to look at them compared to the before and after. Maybe I should go back to the original image. Okay, so here's the original image on both sides, and now I'm going to mess around with the highlights. I usually use the highlights to, if there's a white area or bright area anywhere in the picture that I want to reduce without messing around with the other parts, the highlights will knock that down. So if you look at the histogram, you see mostly it's affecting the right-hand side, sort of shifting it over to the less saturated part. It eventually begins to affect more and more of the range, but just doing it a little bit is usually what you want to do. And if you look at the picture, you can see that now you're beginning to see more detail in the snow here, because this gives it, more of a range here. Okay, so that's highlights. Shadows focuses on the shadows, literally. There aren't a lot of shadows in this picture, but I'll show you. If you look at this little shadow here, it should. Now, I've got some better examples of that, but it is looking for shadowy or darker places in the image. Whites and blacks are a little different. White is a little different from highlights. It looks for white anywhere, doesn't worry about whether it's saturated or near saturation or anything. It just sort of changes the thing, and it will eventually change a lot of stuff to white. Black is the same thing. It sort of works in the opposite direction, but going to the left accentuates the black. Here, going to the right accentuates the white. So, okay.
Jay, if you hold down the Option key and click on, say, whites
Okay.
or blacks, either one, both of them, or hold the Option key and click on the arrow. Yeah, it turned black. Now you can slide the slider back and forth
Oh,
till stuff starts to show up, and that's one way to expand the histogram all the way to the end without losing anything.
So you wouldn't go past that, say, or
Yeah, you might,
that.
whatever, light you can.
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah,
Black works the same way.
okay, good.
That's a really good way to expand the histogram to the full length and then start adjusting from there.
Yeah. And I've got a PC, so it's the Alt key on a PC and the
Ah,
Option key on a Mac.
Okay.
Okay. Let me pick another picture here. Okay, this one is relatively straight, but it's pretty clearly too light, right? Things are too crowded up here. So the first thing I would do here is tone the whole thing down, maybe to something like that. That has helped these are blown out over here. Now they're in pretty good shape here. I might even just turn them down a little bit more. It gives you more detail in the white part there. I don't think whites are going to do much useful. So shadows, there are more shadows here, so you can see it's kind of affecting those. If you wanted to make them sharper or less prominent, you could do that. Okay. Yeah, this one would be, I think, useful for some of these other things. So this, actually, this one I'm going to straighten out. Oh, that's interesting. So I straightened it out, and that, I guess that straightening out thing doesn't work in this right and left. It goes, I had to bring up the before and after, but that's fine. Okay, so this one, the exposure, I might just go back and forth a little bit, but I think that's okay. This might be a good one to show texture. One thing you can do always is click on the image and it'll zoom in. You can pick the zoom level somewhere up here, but if you just want to zoom in quite a bit, just click on the image itself and it'll bounce in quite a bit. So texture is pretty good at bringing out more texture in the image. I don't use it too much. I mean, it might be interesting sometimes to do that, to really wash it out, to give it an abstract look, but usually it's just a bit of texture that I would want to do something with. Clarity, the next one, I do use quite a bit, not at a big level, but just a little bit. See how it sort of sharpens the image up? Look closer. So it's sort of sharpening it, but at least it makes it look clear. I meant to look up exactly what it's doing technically, but I forgot to do that. But as most of these commands, the best thing to do is to go in and learn for yourself what it's doing. So dehaze is probably my favorite thing. This is relatively new in Lightroom, but it's terrific at bringing out detail in a sky. A lot of times you take a picture like this and you don't think there are any clouds. And dehaze will expose clouds. If you do it pretty far, it gets to be a little bit too much, but it's really good at bringing out detail in a boring sky. After you do that, you can go back here, mess around with the other things again. You notice if you go back too far in the white, or if you raise the highlights, you're probably going to lose the sky detail a little bit. But yeah, so that's that.
The other thing, Jay, on dehaze, it's great for finding out how dirty your sensor is on your camera.
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because I've got
Yeah.
a dirty sensor, and every time I take a blue sky image, if I de-haze that thing, I'm like, oh my word, that's terrible. You know, it's just, you see every little speck, every piece of dust.
Yeah, I have noticed that. Particularly if you turn things to black and white, that seems to be really good at bringing out defects, either in the sensor or, you know, other things too. So, yeah. Yeah, it's funny how some, you know, controls or whatever highlight things like that.
Hey,
Okay.
Jay, I have a question.
Yeah,
Can I ask you a question?
sure.
So, like I haven't really been using Lightroom that much, but I have whatever app I have on my cell phone. And it tends to like make the sky pixelated if I try to clean it up too much. I know it's because it's a JPEG, it doesn't have enough information. But do you know what I mean? Like you'll see sort of like those lines or those, they come into the sky. Like a little bit, you know, you can see there. I'll take the video, I'll put the video on. That just has to do with not having enough information to be able to move it that much, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it starts to get a little bit noisy looking.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what dehaze is doing, you know, technically. All these controls are looking at the image, you know, at a local level and making some decision about what to do to increase the local contrast or things like that. But yeah, I think almost anything taken to extremes will start to show noise because it's not perfect at, you know, smoothly applying things. It would be my guess anyway, but yeah, I suspect
That's
Pardon?
not optimal. So that's not a good thing. So I should bring that back. Then when I start to see those kind of noise, like you're saying, then that needs to back off a little bit of whatever
Yeah.
I'm doing. Okay.
Yeah, I would do that. I mean, unless you're looking for a pixelated effect, you know, cameras used to produce grainy images and people love that. So this is one way to get sort of an appearance of grain, but there may be safer ways to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I almost use it mostly to get interest back into the sky if there isn't any. So, okay, well, let me look at another image. Oops. Yeah, this is another one where dehaze should probably do quite a bit. Yeah, let's see what it's done to the sky there. And I don't think it's taken it so far that it's particularly pixelated. You can see it, there's a little bit more, but it may just be that because it's made it, you know, accentuated the differences here. You notice this is pretty uniform. This is a lot more contrasting. And that probably is meaning that the noise is coming up. And just for the hell of it, let me look at the noise. Sometimes I go down here and if I push the noise reduction way over, you see that smooths it out, but it also fuzzes it up. So you don't want to do too much of that, but sometimes just this much noise reduction will take away some of that noisy look that you get for some of these extreme adjustments. So, yeah, I like this picture. This was at Point Betsy. And this is the fog signal station. The lighthouse is right here over in the control panel. But I was walking around on the other side taking pictures, and some guy walked around the corner. He said, "Oh, you should really go around and look at the other side." And I'm really glad he was there to tell me to do that because this is pretty interesting. All this snow and ice built up here. So again, this one definitely needs to be straightened out a little bit. it looks like maybe it should be exposed a little bit more to get a bigger range. Let me just see what happens. Yeah, so this stretches it out, but it probably overdoes it for the highlights. So I would turn these back down. I'd like to see some structure in the snow here. Let's see what dehaze does to this. So it's darkening it. That's too much, but you can see all the detail and interest you can get. And I'm sure you can make lots of artsy shots just by playing around with the dehaze control. So.
Is there a general thing in this thing here to do anything with like perspective? Is there, or is that a different?
I'll show you something.
Yeah, John, you can show her that one. Let me finish up here. And
I just was wondering if there was some like global, but.
Yeah, there's more than you want, I'm sure. Yeah, I can show
Okay.
you.
No, it's not right here at the beginning. Okay.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's not in the basics things, but let me just show you a couple other pictures. So this is Mackinac City, not on the same trip. This is a week or so ago. But let me just show you what I would do with this picture. Again, we'll go back to this. So I should have done this first. Straighten it out. Okay, it looks like it's pushed up too high there. So I would knock it down, maybe use the contrast to spread it out some. Yeah, maybe it could go more exposure with turning the highlights down. And just try these. Yeah, black sort of gives it more range. White. But again, my favorites here, a little bit of clarity. Let's see what dehaze does. So in this case, it's too much to do very much dehaze, but a little bit. Oh, I forgot these guys here. Vibrance is sort of saturation just makes all the colors more saturated. Vibrance just saturates some of the ones. It's pretty good at seeing which colors would improve the image from being a bit more saturated. So it's sort of an AI kind of saturation. So anyway, that's, oh, and one other thing that I often do, if you just press the F button, then you get a full screen view of the picture. And that's helpful sometimes. And you can even zoom in. It's a little strange because sometimes it's sharp and then it gets fuzzy, but I think that's just the monitor or the computer. But this looks pretty sharp. So this gives you a good close-up view of the picture, in a full frame fashion. You press F again to get rid of it. Let's just do one more. So this was a week or so ago when this famous blue ice event that happens a couple times every winter, usually up at the Strait. So this is standing on the ice, actually, away from the shore a little bit in Mackinac City. And again, straighten it out a little bit first. So this doesn't have a big range either. I would try to widen it up somehow. Maybe just that. This is one you might want to mess with the temperature a little bit because it is supposed to be blue ice, but that's probably too blue. But and again, dehaze is probably going to I mean, it really does too much. I mean, it's always interesting. Now let's do a little bit of clarity. So, yeah. So you can see the bridge isn't as sharp as I would have liked. I usually try to focus at the hyperfocal distance. And I don't think I did that in this one. Let me see what this is. It's f7.1. It was nice and fast and a slow ISO, but I probably was too close, or I should have shut the aperture down a little bit. But anyway, you can see the difference with just, you know, a minute or so of changing these things. You can do quite a bit. There's just one other thing I wanted to show. These are things that I never use, but a lot of people I've heard talk about this said the first thing you should always do is just click on auto here. And Lightroom will look at the picture and make a bunch of, see what it's changed all sorts of things here. So this is its, you know, mechanical interpretation of what it thinks a better picture is. And it's perfectly fine to start from there and start experimenting. I don't know why I never think to do that, but you know, if you want to get a head start and you're not, you know, you're not trying to learn each control individually, this will actually get you in a better starting place. And you can see it made some pretty significant changes here. It changed almost everything. So that's why I guess I'm a little leery about it. I sort of like to know what's going on and not have to try to look at each of these and see, okay, what did this one do? But I could see that would be a learning experience too. So, okay. All right, so that's as much as I was going to cover. Does anybody have any final questions about the basic things? Okay, John, you want to take over then?
All right. Can I?
I'm going to unshare my screen. And you should be able to share yours.
It says host disabled, participant screen sharing.
Oh, really? Great. Huh. Oh. Yeah, luckily the interface for Zoom is relatively intuitive. So I think I did that now. So you should be able to do it.
There we go.
Yeah.
Let me see. Be sure I get the right chunk here. There we go. Oops.
Yeah, I see it.
You guys all in over the top of my. There we go. All righty. I was just gonna kind of talk about this one picture, show you some of the things that are in the develop module. Just like, and this is the raw photo, the way it came out of the camera. Yeah, a couple of things up here. Profile. You got a choice of a whole bunch of different profiles, and basically what that will do is change the starting points for you. You know, all these, none of this stuff is affected, but it does change. It does move the starting point just a little bit. So, you know, typically I would just hit auto and let it do something and yeah, that's not very good. So I mess with it and change it around. Wanted to go into, where'd it go? Now let's just cover the HSL. Hue, saturation, and luminance. Hue is the color, saturation, how deep it is. Luminance is the lightness. This is kind of slick. If you see, you can see this little, it looks like a watch when you hover over it, over the top. You bring that over the color on the, or the photo, and you can start messing with the color. It changed all the blues to this blue green, or maybe purple, whatever. So that's an interesting little thing. It does, that's hue, saturation does the same thing. It makes it really change or desaturates it. Luminance makes it light or dark, but without changing the color. So double click. Oops. Where is it? Resets it all. You can double click on the slider itself. That sets it back to 0, or you can make whatever changes you'll like. Going on down the list, detail, this is where the sharpening and noise reduction is. And yeah, if you zoom way in, you can see there's some, I don't know how well you can see it here, but it's got a little bit of noise. Well, I guess Jay, this is the same thing Jerry was showing you. So you can do what you need to do here. One interesting little thing is this little target here lets you focus in on a very small area. You can see on in the window in the control panel over there what's happening. So that gives you a little bit more control. Sharpening, kind of got to be careful with sharpening. If you can go too far and you start getting halos around things. But generally, you can sharpen, you can put a fair amount of sharpening on there to clean things up. Masking, option or alternate click on masking. This is what this is doing. It lets you selectively sharpen so that if it's all the way to the left, you're sharpening everything. As you come in, move it to the right, basically you're sharpening less and less. The black masks the sharpening. So that's kind of useful. The lens corrections, this is extremely useful in turning, you want to turn this on, the profile connection or chromatic aberration. And this is pretty much automatic. It should read, the system will read your lens and make changes. You can see how much it does change.
Yeah, one thing I do with that, John, is I have a preset when I import things, it automatically does those.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, you can do that. And I do too.
Yeah.
Just have the automatic, just automatically. Every time we import something,
Right.
Throw the profile on. Whoops, what did I do here? Okay. Effects. We're starting to get to where you were talking about, Rochelle, between here and the next one. This is where you can put on post-crop vignetting. So you can black or white. So that's really useful. You can crop it to whatever. And it works at whatever, like it says, post-crop. Let me go back to the original here. Transform is the one that on this particular picture really makes a difference. This is the one where you can start to mess around with perspective. And I like guided. What this does is it lets you set lines. You can see that line there. And put another one down here. This will change the perspective. Kind of straighten it up. Might need another one vertically. Just to doors a little bit slightly cattywampus. And now all of a sudden, just that quick, we're all straightened up. And you've got all these things in this area. You almost have to mess with it on a photo by photo basis. But I found that guided works as good as anything. With 2 or 3 lines, you'll straighten things right up. Let's see here. This is a new thing in Lightroom with this last update. You can change specific areas, the shadows, and add some color, or you can take it away. If you got a picture that seems to have you took it on a sunny day and there's a blue tint and everything, you can start adjusting that stuff here.
Yes.
This is doing all of them at the same time. Your shadows, you can do independently across this way. So there's some opportunity here with some deft touch to get rid of that those color casts. You can induce the color cast sometimes. With other things you're doing, you can come here and straighten that up. This is the tone curve. Same thing as in a lot of places. If you put the cursor on the line, you can see the areas that are being adjusted. Add points to control it tighter. These sliders let you move that point around. So there's an awful lot of capability here. It's kind of the same thing as up here when you're doing a spot thing. This is overall, but there we go. It's got that same little watch deal, so you can pick a point. So you click someplace, you can see the point on the curve. You can see exactly what you're changing. So all of a sudden you've got a heck of a lot of control. Let's see here.
John?
Yeah.
So you can control this 3 different ways. You can control the line, or you can do the slider, or you can do the slider and the highlights, the lights and the darks. They all
Yep.
kind of, so all 3 of those things.
It's all possible. It's just
Oh.
like Photoshop here.
Okay,
So
that's interesting. All right.
you can control each individual color, red, green, blue. Right across the top there. All of them, any one of them, like if you see this histogram and there's a big blue, red or green, whatever hump, it seems to be that color cast. You can go work on it here. You watch the histogram, you can see what happened over there. Super, super powerful. Oh. What else? Yeah, this I don't ever go in here in this process. Is version 1 through 5, or there are changes in the software that I'll come across an old picture that'll say version 2, and the menus change. So I just make sure everything's on the current version, and work on the photo from there. And before and after. To me, that's much stronger. Simpler photograph. Get rid of some of the excess dead space. But when you do that, it crops the original one as well. The information up here in the corner is useful. Oops. Here, the loop information. You can change the information up there. And you can well, you can edit the information that's in there. I know it's here someplace. Where'd it go? There it is. View options. So you can change the information in those two titles. That's always useful to know what the photo information was. I was using number one.
John and Jay, I've got to take off, but thanks for the tips for the last hour. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Sure.
All right. See you guys.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Going back to this one. This is a place where the texture really helps. This particular photo. Yeah. Slowing down here on the computer and doing too much and messing around all day.
Just that what was it? Collaboration or whatever. Is that like what a typical per se 35 millimeter film would look like? Was that like, oh, this is a Kodak blah blah blah, or is that not what that is about? That collaboration. I guess I don't have a very good understanding of it.
Oh, it's calibration. Calibration.
Oh, calibration. What is that again? That is just changing the.
This is somewhat the way Lightroom works.
Because it seems like you've had those already. You've had a tint and a hue and a saturation. So
yeah.
So it's just
It's
more into the color. So you can do the tint within the shadow.
yeah. You don't do that here. This is more along the lines of Lightroom 10 years ago had a bunch of software stuff in it that changed, where you could change colors and do things.
Okay.
These calibrations are going back in history to the various Lightroom levels, so that if you edited a picture in 2015, it was on version 3. If you bring it in and look at it at version 5, it probably doesn't look the same with the same slider settings.
So then you could go back to that version.
So you can go back to that original version and see, or maybe it's better in the later one. But that's really all that is.
Okay, so you could go back to that version where which you edited. And
You're
edit
doing
that version.
something new today, you don't even worry about this.
Okay.
You go, you start with the basic stuff. You kind of work your way straight down. Maybe a little too much. Come on. These controls up here are more specific, more local changes. So this is, oops. What did I do? Okay, that's what. So if I wanted, for instance, to do something to the light, essentially painting. And my Lightroom is slowing down.
I'll shut off my stuff. Maybe it'll help with the Zoom thing.
The Zoom doesn't like as much as, there we go. Slowly catching up to something I did. If you can see that dot over the lamp, I painted an area, and now I have control over that. There we go. Now you can see it a little bit. Uh-oh. We left out. Yeah, it's not. I feel this thing isn't going to let me work too much longer. Anyhow, these are this is a different ranges, different areas that you can affect with these studies or settings. So you can change the exposure locally. Maybe this one will do better. No. There we go. So I'm just affecting everything above the line, essentially. I can change exposures and contrast, all this stuff here. Basically, doing something locally. Yeah, it's not. I'm just going to sit and wait. Sorry about that. Oh. Poor little computer is just having a tough time with all this stuff going on. Anybody got any questions that I can
I do.
answer at this point?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. When I'm doing this type of work in Photoshop and the sliders, sometimes the sliders aren't real easy to control. It might go from 10 to 25 or 10 to 30.
Yeah.
Can you just highlight the numbers on this and just change the number? Say if it was 10 to start and you wanted just 15. So you could just change the number to 15
Like,
without using the slider, just change the numbers.
so for instance,
Well, like for instance, on that one, you got shadows at 37. You
Yeah.
can change it to just 30. Well, just by highlighting that and then typing in the number. Yes, okay. Okay, that's one question. The other one I had was, when you were talking about the vignetting.
Yeah.
I have a lens that, it's an old lens. It's still a great lens, but on these newer cameras, it has a little bit of a vignette and it's a dark vignette. Can you use the white vignette to correct for that?
I would say it would help. Down here in effects. This thing just doesn't want to. It's done too much this afternoon, but I would think it would help Steve a little bit. Maybe
Okay.
the haze, even if you went in and, oops. Put in a, this does a circle or whatever. You can, if you look at the right-hand column, you can see all the control. Well, shoot.
They get a little frustrating when they get like that.
Yeah. Come on, you silly thing.
I have a question.
Shoot.
There at the top of your window where you have your name, you have it in red. You told us how to change the color that one time, but I forgot. Probably in preferences.
Yeah. Preferences, and there's something, I think it says something about editing. If I can get there.
I don't think you can get anywhere,
I
John.
can't get anywhere at the moment. My wife is on a Zoom call right now too, so that might have something to do with it.
Your internet.
Usually ours is pretty fast, but it may not be this fast. And it's just not going to do anything. I'm pretty sure that's where that is. It's under the that far left-hand menu up at the top, which says Lightroom, and underneath it, preferences, and in there someplace, it brings up
Okay, thanks. That's fine.
that header stuff. You can edit it, change it, color, fonts, everything. Looks like I'm done. This thing is just going to sit here.
I have a question. What's our next thing? Are we going through Lightroom?
Well, that's really what we're trying to figure out, whether it makes sense to keep slogging through this, or whether we should look for something, more on the
I think it
creative
would-
side or whatever, but
Well, I mean, for right now, for me, a good leaping off point or whatever would be to like maybe, since we are such a small group, that we take an image from each person's, and actually process it. Like we can share, I can open Lightroom, I can put the image in, and then, if I'm fumbling through it, I could get tips or pointers, or, maybe how you would do it as opposed to how I would do it, or, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
so that people actually can actually do it, and then, say, oh yeah, but if you really want this, you could do this. You know what I mean?
yeah, no, that would be easy to set up. It would be easy for us. All we need to do is send out a request for people who want to be in the show, want to be in the call, to send us a picture, a before and after picture. And then they could explain what they did or what they were trying to do. And then if we had the picture in advance, one of us could do what we would have done to it or something, or have a discussion about that. Yeah, I think that would be good. We could probably do 10 pictures in an hour and a half or an hour or something like that. So sure. Anybody else think that would be worth doing? Steve, yes.
I
Yeah,
think-
I could learn a lot from that.
Okay.
I
I
was
think
thinking,
it would be worthwhile. It might also be interesting if we all started with the same image
Mm.
and processed it, and then see what we ended up with. And it's a little bit like the critiques, where you get an idea of what other people have done, and expand your bag of tricks as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would work well. We would send out an image that everybody would edit, but we would also ask everybody to do what we were talking about before, send us an image that, edited and unedited from them. It would make a nice complete session, I think. Yeah. Yeah, I'm perfectly willing to try that. What do you think, John?
Sure. I mean, we've always had a good time doing that at discussion groups.
Yeah.
Similar things, taking something and seems kind of our point was to get the person, helping them along with their own photograph.
Yeah.
So looking over their shoulder or giving suggestions as we go, maybe even something like that.
Yeah, so like a live edit, somebody chooses a photograph and they live edit and you say this or that. Is that what you're kind of talking about? Like I
Yeah.
share my screen, pop up a photograph and do like a live edit. Right. My frying pan is on fire. Gotta go. I'll be back.
Yeah, well, we're open to what we do next. I think we'll still try to do this focus group thing, but this will give us something to do next month, and without having to wait for that or to analyze that. And it sounds straightforward enough. Yeah, so John, Mary, and I will talk about how we would set that up, but I think it's pretty obvious how that would work. Good.
Anything.
So any suggestions about how we get more people? Could everybody bring a friend to the next call, for example? Do we have a lottery? Maybe we could give away a vaccine shot. Well, if you think of anything, let me know.
okay. Thank you much. Gotta go now.
Okay, I think we're done.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks, everybody. See you later.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I
Bye.
always pick up something. Thanks. Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.